What is up, everyone? Remi the PoE Trap here, and welcome to episode 1 of our Path of Exile Crash Course series. Now, this series was dedicated and made mostly for those new and upcoming players, and those that are just starting out, and I'm hoping to provide explanations and guides on a wide variety of the game's mechanics and content. Now, if you got any questions, comments, suggestions, or are unclear about any of my explanations, please feel free to leave a message in the comments below, and I will reply as soon as I am able. For episode 1, we're going to be talking about leagues. So what are leagues? Leagues can be considered as game modes or game worlds. Initially, when you're just starting off as a beginner exile, you're going to be able to choose, depending if there's a temporary league active or not, from 2 to 4 different leagues on which to make a character on. The first two that will be initially available will be Permanent Standard and Permanent Hardcore League, or as some people like to call them alternatively, Standard or Hardcore Trade Leagues. Now, depending if there is a temporary league active or not, you will also be able to choose the temporary league equivalents. And in this case, that would be Expedition Standard and Hardcore Expedition. In both Standard and Hardcore leagues, you're able to trade and party up with other players. However, keep in mind that leagues are independent from one another, so you cannot trade or party up with people that are in different leagues. So if you're planning to play with a friend, make sure that you both pick the same league. Now, you might be asking yourself, what's the difference between a Standard and a Hardcore league? Well, it has to do with death. So if you die in Standard League, it doesn't really incur any major penalties other than an EXP loss and maybe a trip back to town. However, if you die in a hardcore league, what happens is that your character is going to be removed from that league and it's going to be transferred to the standard league. So as you can see here in the Hardcore Expedition, so if your character is killed in Hardcore Expedition, it becomes a standard character. So you can consider it as a sort of permadeath, but your character can still be played in the standard league. But of course, it's not going to be in the hardcore league, which you initially started out on, but they are going to have the items that they had when they died. So you'll generally see in standard leagues, both meta and off-meta builds being played, while in hardcore leagues, you're going to see people lean more towards the high-end meta min-max builds. Now, in addition to the standard and the hardcore leagues, there's also another variation of a league, which is my personal favorite, called Solo Self-Found, or SSF. In the SSF leagues, which is available in both the standard and hardcore formats, all player interaction is disabled. That means no trading and no partying. However, you'll still be able to see and chat with other people. And you can consider this league as a form of solo Path of Exile, as every item you collect and the progress you make will be through your own volition and hard work. And this can feel really rewarding, especially when you manage to make it to endgame while working with what you got for a particular playthrough, and there's a larger variety of builds in this particular league, some of which may surprise you when they actually work. So now let's talk about temporary leagues. So these leagues typically have about a 3 to 4 month cycle and will introduce a new mechanic or piece of content to the game. Just as an example of what this league provides, so this league provides, or rather introduces, the Calgar, as well as introduces expedition encounters where you're able to place explosives, and depending on where you place those explosives, you can unearth monsters and treasures that may be affected by modifiers depending on where you place them. It's a whole bunch of fun. It's very loot centric, and on top of that, it also introduces some new skill gems and some reworks of mechanics. So in this particular case, it reworks on a flask system. Now, temporary leagues contain everything that the permanent leagues have. So standard, hardcore, solo, self-found, and their variations, all those modes can be found in these temporary challenge leagues. At the end of these leagues, your characters and all the items that you've accumulated will be transferred to the equivalent permanent league. So if you're playing a standard expedition character, it's going to get transferred to standard, and so on and so forth. So what's really fun about these temporary leagues is that everyone starts off on the same level. Everyone starts off from zero. And you get to experience the game fresh, albeit with the new content. A lot of people like to do what's called racing, where you try to be the first to defeat a certain boss or to reach a certain map in the end game, and you're rewarded if you are the first to do that, with you getting your name globally announced to the rest of the league that, hey, you were the first to do this. On top of that, it can be very rewarding to play on these temporary leagues, because if you complete certain achievements, in the league before it ends, you are able to earn prizes and rewards, which usually comprise of microtransactions in game that can be shared account wide on your characters. So this is usually why it's worth it to play on temporary leagues, and keep in mind that the content in these temporary leagues are going to be eventually added to the main standard game once the cycle has ended. Lastly, there are also private leagues that exist which are player run, and you can actually buy and make your own through an initial cost of 120 points or the equivalent of $12 USD. Now, these initially will have a limit of 10 players and typically have a duration of 10 days. However, there exists the option to extend the duration of that league, as well as increase the player amount as well. Now, on top of that, you can also have player chosen modifications here. So for example, here, you can increase the monster's speed, additional monster projectiles, stuff like that. And these leagues can also be based upon the current leagues that are ongoing. So they could be like an expedition-based league with these added modifiers on top of it. And I feel like this is a great way to introduce a community to a game if you are part of one. And the payments for these leagues can be crowdfunded by prospective players as well. Now, in terms of which leagues new players should start on, I do strongly suggest starting out in the standard temporary league if it's available, and if not, on the standard permanent league. And the reason for this is that as a new player, you won't really know the ins and outs of the map layouts and the boss mechanics, and playing on standard can help you better prepare for those hardcore runs when you know ahead of time a certain boss's moveset and when you've got a proper grasp of the game. And that's about it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 1 of our Path of Exile Crash Course series. I am looking forward to making more of these videos to help you guys get comfortable in the game, so look forward to that. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for more videos like this one, and until next time, guys, Remi out.